So my working model is that, we're going to continue chopping around 25, 20, 30,000 this year. As we get to some sort of financial disturbance and people recognize that real rates are negative, if government are growing, if the economy is growing at a nominal rate of 10%, but I'm only getting 5%, 6%, even though it's high, people are on the margin going to start buying other stuff, crypto being one of those things. So coming into 2024, either we get a financial crisis, rates go to zero, or we keep raising rates, but not as fast as governments are spending money because they're just trying to keep people doing things, and the rates are negative. That we get to crypto around 70,000 by the end of 2024, and that's a combination of the crypto halvening event, right? Maybe there's going to be a few ETFs launched by large asset managers in the U.S. and Europe and China, or maybe Hong Kong, to be specific. So we regain the all-time high by the end of 2024, and that's when the real fun starts, right? That's when the real bull market starts. And so my mental model for where we could go, I think we're going to go somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million in Bitcoin on the upside, right?
Crypto expert Arthur Hayes just dropped a bombshell prediction. He believes Bitcoin will hit a new all-time high by the end of 2024. What's more, he thinks Bitcoin will continue to march upwards to $750,000 to $1 million by 2026. If you don't know who Arthur Hayes is, he's a crypto veteran who founded the crypto exchange BitMex, and he now has a net worth of over $500 million. He has over a decade worth of experience in crypto, and he's a macroeconomic expert. In his most recent interview, he broke down his insane Bitcoin prediction, but make sure to stick around to the end of the video where Arthur explains why he thinks we are first heading towards a global collapse before we enter the biggest bull market the world has ever seen. Also guys, if you want to stay most up to date on the crypto world, I sent out a daily 5-minute crypto newsletter that covers expert predictions, on-chain data breakdowns, and breaking news, all for free. Click the first link in the description, enter your email, and join over 15,000 others to become a better crypto investor right now. Now here's Arthur Hayes with his Bitcoin prediction.
I absolutely agree that there's going to be a major financial crisis, probably as bad or worse than the Great Depression sometime near the end of the decade. Before we get there, we're going to have, I think, the largest bull market in stocks, real estate, crypto, art, you name it, that we've ever seen since World War II. And the reason I believe that is if we back up to like 1945, essentially Europe blew itself up. China was destroyed by a civil war, and Japan, Russia essentially fought the war for everybody else, and massive destruction. So if you look across the world, the only country that was left was the US. And they had a manufacturing base that was unharmed from the war, and they essentially rebuilt the war and reaped enormous benefits. And we're still, people who are American are still living off of those benefits today. But at the end of the day, everybody's sort of believing this thing called, Keynesian economics, which basically is, if something gets in trouble, the government should rush in, spend money. If they don't have the money, the central bank should print it. And, everybody collectively in the world, no matter if you're, what sort of ism you believe in, subscribe to this theory. And what that means is, we all have collectively agreed that the government is there essentially to attempt to remove the business cycle. Like there should never be, bad things had happened to the economy. And if there are, we want the government to come in and essentially destroy the free market. So every time we've had a financial crisis over the last, 80 years, what happens, the government rushes in and they essentially destroy some part of the free market because they want to, save the system. And what does that mean? It's like whack-a-mole. So every time there's a disturbance, the central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US, they come in, they print money, they enact a bunch of regulations, and they basically say, okay, we don't want this sector to fail. We don't want, the creative destruction that is so-called, capitalism, if you actually believe in that. We don't want that. And every, 5-7 years, there's another sector of the economy that's essentially price fixed. And so we've gotten to this point where globally, central banks have basically destroyed the free pricing mechanism in just about every single sector of the financial economy, except for one, which is the government bond markets, because they're so large, so unruly that it's practically impossible to essentially remove the market forces from this part of the market. But the problem is, right now we're going to try. We've gone from 100% debt to GDP globally to about 360%, as per the World Bank, and we are accelerating the amount of debt that we're adding onto the pile. Why? Because in the rich world, including China, Russia, and Brazil, we've stopped having enough kids. So the population is actually declining. So if you have all this debt and you don't have more humans being born to essentially do stuff to pay it back, the only way to ensure the system is solvent is for the governments and the central banks to start printing money. And now we've gotten to the situation where we have all this debt that needs to be rolled over. We have a population that has been told that, hey, you're good. Anything ever happens, we, the government, are going to come in and we're going to make sure that, you have enough food to eat, you got healthcare, we're going to protect you, blah, 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 right? And all that's expensive, especially as you have less and less humans who are doing productive stuff. And so we're just going to keep adding on debt because that's the only way the government can stay in business. And now we've gotten to the situation where there's so much debt and it's accelerating in an exponential fashion, that in order to save the market this time, right? So I think in the next 3 to 6 months, there's going to be some sort of major market disturbance, and probably in the US Treasury or other large global bond markets. And the solution is going to be, let's print the most money that we've ever printed to try to save essentially this fiat financial system that we've created since World War II, which is going to, in the first instance, create a massive bull market in anything, like stocks, crypto, real estate, things that have a fixed supply. Maybe they're productive, they have some earnings. And then after that, we're going to find out, actually, the government can't save everything. They can't just print as much money as they think to try to save themselves and fix the price of the yield of their bonds. And we're going to get a generational collapse. And hopefully that doesn't coincide with a major global conflict. Usually it does. I hope it doesn't, because I don't really want to live through World War III while I'm alive. But that's sort of my overarching macro cycle thesis. So, massive top 2026 timeframe, and then some sort of Great Depression like situation happening towards the end of the decade. So it's a financial system that's gone from zero, right? First Genesis block in 2009, to a system that has weathered multiple crises, right? In the most recent, we had one of the largest exchanges in the world, a bunch of the largest lenders, some of the largest hedge funds, massive amounts of fraud. All this happened in the span of 6 months. People lost hundreds of billions of dollars in value, yet blocks kept being produced every 10 minutes for Bitcoin, 10 seconds for Ethereum, and whatever the blockchains are for a lot of other currencies. The decentralized finance or DeFi movement, people were still trading on decentralized exchanges. People were still borrowing and lending different currencies on some of these lending platforms. The financial architecture worked, even though we had one of the biggest losses of wealth and biggest amounts of financial malfeasance ever in the crypto ecosystem. And I mean, if you want to compare the amount of money that Sam Bankman-Fried and his crew allegedly stole from their customers, it would rank as one of the largest thefts, financial frauds in human history, right? All this happened. There was no bailout. There was no central bank that said, we need to preserve the system, and therefore, assuming they could, print a bunch of Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, and make sure these entities are made whole so that certain people don't lose any money. None of that happened. People lost a lot of money, but the architecture of the system worked. The community was still there. People are still shipping code. I was just at Token 24/9 in Singapore. The energy, 11,000 tickets sold out. Basically almost took over the whole of Marina Bay Sands Convention Center for this conference. People around the world believe in this system. There's some of the smartest people in the world who I've ever met who are building this system. You take a look at who are the smart people in the scalaric financial fiat system. A bunch of fucking Muppets, right? They're there because they've always been there, not because they're special, not because they're inspiring. So they're not building anything new. They're trying to keep the old thing relevant. And so that's why I believe this is going to have staying power, because the math works, the cryptography works, but most importantly, the people are so impressive and so dedicated and so enthusiastic about what they're building. And I've worked at a bank too. There was none of that energy working in the traditional financial sector. We're there punching a clock, earning a paycheck, and trying to take as much risk as possible so we make a little bit of money so we can get the fuck out of there. So my working model is that, we're going to continue chopping around 25, 20, 30,000 this year. As we get to some sort of financial disturbance and people recognize that real rates are negative, if government are growing, if the economy is growing at a nominal rate of 10%, but I'm only getting 5%, 6%, even though it's high, people are on the margin going to start buying other stuff, crypto being one of those things. So coming into 2024, either we get a financial crisis, rates go to zero, or we keep raising rates, but not as fast as governments are spending money because they're just trying to keep people doing things, and the rates are negative. That we get to crypto around 70,000 by the end of 2024, and that's a combination of the crypto halvening event, right? Maybe there's going to be a few ETFs launched by large asset managers in the U.S. and Europe and China, or maybe Hong Kong, to be specific. So we regain the all-time high by the end of 2024, and that's when the real fun starts, right? That's when the real bull market starts. And so my mental model for where we could go, I think we're going to go somewhere between $750,000 to $1 million in Bitcoin on the upside, right? And we're going to, whatever the level is, there's gonna be a round number everyone's gonna be focusing on. I guess like Bitcoin hit 69,999, didn't hit 70,000, and then it's gonna go and just crash, 75, 80, 90%, whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter. But yeah, so my upside target-ish is sort of the $750,000 million level, 2026 time frame, just because, again, I believe this is going to be the largest market in bull market in financial assets we have ever seen in human history. So not only will Bitcoin be at a ridiculous price, NASDAQ will be at a ridiculous price. S&P will be at a ridiculous price. Pick your, stock indice wherever if you're not in the Europe or the US, that'll be at a ridiculous price, right? Certain types of property, ridiculous prices. So we're gonna have a lot of ridiculous prices out there, and not just in crypto.
So there's Arthur Hayes with his insane Bitcoin prediction. It's not every day that someone with his track record speaks so candidly about their bold outlook. Whether Bitcoin's trajectory follows Arthur's predictions or not, the insights he shared gives us a lot to consider as we navigate the volatile waters of the crypto world. Remember, as with all investment predictions, nothing is set in stone, and it's always crucial to do your own research and consult with financial advisors before making any investment decisions. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you sign up for my daily 5-minute crypto newsletter to stay ahead of the curve. The link is in the description. Anyway guys, hope you all enjoyed today's video and that provided you with some value. I'll see you all in the next one, and as always, all the best.